He stood at the back of the church, black suit, same one he'd worn 6 times that year. And for the first time in his life, he asked himself a question he didn't want to answer. Why am I here? He'd known the man in the casket for 30 years. They'd grown up 2 streets apart. Same school, same neighborhood, same birthday parties as kids. But he hadn't seen him in 11 years. Not once, not a phone call, not a message, not a knock on the door. 11 years of, I should reach out, and he never did. Now he was sitting in a wooden pew, eyes red, throat tight, listening to a stranger read a eulogy about a man he claimed to love. And something inside him cracked. He looked around. The church was full. Maybe 200 people, crying, hugging, telling stories about Tom, how kind he was, how funny, how he'd always show up when you needed him. He started counting. How many of these people had Tom seen in the last year of his life? The answer hit him like a punch. Almost none. Because Tom had spent the last year of his life in a small apartment, alone, reading books and watching the window. His wife told the family that, quietly, at the wake. He'd just sit there. He stopped calling people because no one ever called back. And here they all were, 200 of them, showing up for the man they didn't show up for. That night, he drove home and didn't sleep. He sat at his kitchen table and he made a list. Every person he loved, every person who mattered to him, every person whose funeral he would cry at if it happened tomorrow. Then he wrote next to each name the last time he'd actually seen them. Most of them were over a year. Some were over 5. His own father, 8 months. He stared at that list until the sun came up. And then he made a decision that sounds simple, but most people never make. He decided he would never attend the funeral of someone he hadn't visited while they were alive. Not as a punishment, not as a rule, as a mirror, because he'd realized something that had been hiding in plain sight his entire adult life. Funerals are the easiest place on earth to perform love. You show up in a black suit, you cry on cue, you hug people you barely know, and then you drive home and feel like a good person. But the dead can't see you. The only people who can see you are the living. And if you're not showing up for them now while they're still here, then your tears at their funeral are not love. They're guilt. And guilt is the cheapest currency a human being can spend. So he started visiting. His father, every 2 weeks. His old friends. Once a month, even if it was awkward, even if they hadn't spoken in years. His mother, every Sunday. No exceptions. The first few visits were strange. People didn't know what to do with the attention. His father even asked him halfway through a quiet dinner, "Are you okay? Is something wrong?" Because that's how rare it had become. A son visiting his father with no agenda was suspicious. 3 years later, his father died. He sat at that funeral too. Same suit, same kind of pew, same red eyes. But this time, when he cried, the tears were different. He wasn't crying because he was sorry he hadn't shown up. He was crying because he had. He'd had 3 more years with his father than he was supposed to have. 3 years of dinners. 3 years of long Sunday afternoons. 3 years where his father got to feel, in his last decade, that someone was choosing him. And as he sat there, watching the casket, he finally understood the thing most people don't understand until it's too late. The people you love are not waiting for your funeral attendance. They're waiting for your phone call, your visit, your presence in a room with no occasion attached to it. Because the cruelest lie we tell ourselves is that we'll have time later. There is no later. There is only the Tuesday afternoon when you could have driven over but didn't. The voicemail you meant to return. The "I miss you" you typed and deleted because it felt too vulnerable. That's where love lives. Or doesn't. He didn't stop going to funerals because he stopped caring. He stopped going because he finally understood. Love that only arrives at a grave is just guilt wearing flowers.